Alright, solving quadratic equations by factorization. We have 4 questions here that we are going to work on using this process of factorizing to find the solutions. Now, if we look at number 1, it's a squared minus 3a plus 2 is equal to 0. What you have learned on how to factorize an expression in algebraic expression, a quadratic expression, that's exactly what you do here. You can do it aside here, a squared minus 3a plus 2. You have been taught that you multiply the first and the third term. The product there is 2a squared. So now we need 2 terms that multiply to give 2a squared, and the same terms, if we add them, we must get the middle term, which is minus 3a. So we can just consider the numbers. We need 2 numbers that multiply to give 2. If we add them, we get negative 3. So that should tell you, in terms of numbers, it's negative 1 and negative 2, and then we just put the a, so this would be negative a, so negative a and negative 2a. Now we replace the middle term by these terms. So basically we are saying this is a squared, this term we replace it with minus a minus 2a plus the 2, which is equal to 0. Then you understand that we factorize by grouping. The first 2 terms, what is common is a, so we factor out a, and then if we divide a squared by a, we get a, minus a divided by a is 1. And then the last 2 terms, we have to factor out something so that we remain with a minus 1. So what we factor out on negative 2a to remain with a, we can see that we factor out negative 2. And definitely, if you check here, if you factor out negative 2, you are saying 2 divided by negative 2, you get negative 1. So don't forget, it's equal to 0. Then now you factor out this bracket on these 2 terms. So a minus 1, you remain with a minus 2 is equal to 0. Now, we are saying the product of 2 brackets is equal to 0. We apply what we call the 0 rule. If the multiplication of these 2 numbers gives us 0, we can only get 0 if one of these brackets is equal to 0. So we are saying it is either a minus 1 that will be equal to 0, or it is this bracket that is a minus 2 will be equal to 0. So that will be, now to solve for a, we just transpose negative 1, it becomes positive 1, or a will be equal to 2. So these are the solutions to question number 1. Let's move on to the second question. Number 2 is a squared plus 5n is equal to 0. It is still quadratic equation, although you don't have the third term. So in a case like this, you go straight to do factorization. It's not a long process. That means you look at the terms. What you have common there is n. So you factor out n, you remain with n plus 5. And then you apply the 0 rule. It is either n that will be equal to 0, or it is the bracket that is n plus 5 that will be equal to 0. So it's only this one, this is fine. So from this one, n will be equal to negative 5. Question number 3. x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. Now, when you get so used to factorization, you can even do the process in your mind. The first two, the product of the first and the third is 9x squared. And then we are simply saying we need two numbers that multiply to give us positive 9. If we add them, we get negative 6. So your mathematics should tell you that it's negative 3 by negative 3. If you also say negative 3 plus negative 3, you get negative 6. So you can just take this. Since the coefficient of x squared is 1, we can apply a shortcut, that is x. The factors is negative 3 into x minus 3 is equal to 0. You only do this if the coefficient of x squared or the unknown you are having is positive 1. You can just find the two numbers and then you put them there with their signs. So we are saying this is the same, applying the 0 rule, that means x minus 3 is equal to 0. It's the same thing, so there's no need to repeat. So in this case, we are saying x is equal to positive 3. And then the last question, (2m squared minus 5m minus 3 is equal to 0. Since the coefficient of m squared is not positive 1, we can't go straight to the shortcut method. Let's do the normal process. First term times the third term, we get negative 6m squared. Let's look for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 6. If we add them, we get negative 5m. So we can see that the numbers that multiply to give negative 6, if we add them, we get negative 5. That would be negative 6m times m. If we add minus 6m plus m, we get negative 5m. So that's the thinking process that is a challenge to you most guys, to get those two terms. So once you get them, then your problem is solved. Replace the middle term, that is 2m squared minus 6m plus m minus 3 is equal to 0. Factorize by grouping. First two terms is 2m, that is common. That means you remain with m, and then divide this by 2m, it's minus 3. And then whatever you are going to factor out, you must get m minus 3. So what you factor out on positive m to remain with positive m, that tells you it's positive 1. And then now you factor out the bracket, that is m minus 3, you remain with 2m plus 1 is equal to 0. That is either m minus 3 is equal to 0 or 2m plus 1 is equal to 0. So from this one, m is equal to 3, or you take positive 1, so you have 2m is equal to negative 1, and then you divide by 2 both sides, therefore m will be equal to negative 1 over 2. So these are the solution. So basically that's how you solve equations by factorization. I hope this brings some light and you can proceed to do the other questions.